It was a comfortable start to life. Nano Nagle was born in Ballygriffin, County Cork, in the shadow of the Nagle Mountains. She was related to Edmund Burke, the great thinker, and to Father Matthew, the temperance campaigner. But like all Catholics at the time, she was educated in a hedge school, secretly. Education had to be secret because of the penal laws. Those laws set out to do away with Catholicism, by imprisonment, by confiscation of lands, by the death penalty. Nano's lively temperament and high spirits bothered her mother. Her father, on the other hand, was quietly confident. "My Nano will be a saint someday," was how he put it. Anyone observing Nano during her teens, when she went to Paris to finish her education, would have figured Mr. Nagle was wrong. Paris was the most beautiful, glamorous and exciting capital in Europe at the time. Nano and her sister were presented to the court of Louis XV. They danced into the small hours each night. But it was coming home at dawn from one of those dances that Nano, snug in her carriage, spotted groups of poor people, shivering in the dark and cold, waiting for the church doors to open so they could attend Mass. Suddenly, her life seemed trivial by comparison. Trivial, frivolous, selfish. Not long afterwards, her father died, and the two girls came back to Dublin, Nano bringing with her a bale of the finest Parisian silk. The Dublin they encountered was shockingly different to Paris. It was lawless, filled with drunkenness and poverty. Everywhere uneducated children swarmed, filthy and starving. Without telling Nano, her sister Anne sold the bale of silk to feed the poor. When Nano found out, she was startled, and she was changed. She realised she had to respond too. Her sister's action transformed her, and when Anne died not long afterwards, her influence continued. Nano, seeing dire poverty all around her even when she went back home to Ballygriffin, decided to go back to Paris to become a nun, in the belief that a life of prayer for the poor was the only way she could help. In Paris, she realised she was wrong. The needs of Irish children required her to return and to do something practical, something that would make a real and immediate difference. So she went to her brother and his wife in Cork, where her plans began to take shape. She knew that to keep a people in ignorance was to condemn them to a life of poverty. She would start with the children. She would give all and risk all to educate them. She set up her first school in 1754 in a mud cabin in Cove Lane, now Douglas Street in Cork. 2 small rooms, earthen floors, a thatched roof. Her first students were 30 little girls from the nearby streets, gathered so quietly even her brother Joseph didn't notice at first. When he did, however, he was angry because of the risks for Nano and for the family. Her conviction that this was what God wanted her to do, and her strong will won him over. Joseph Nagle became Nano's greatest ally. Within 15 years, she opened 7 schools, 5 for girls, 2 for boys, in Cork City. Girls were taught reading, writing, arithmetic, sewing and mending. Boys and girls were taught the catechism, prepared for the sacraments, brought to Mass. When her day's work was done, she visited the sick, the old and the dying, in the narrow lanes, carrying a lantern to light her way. The Lady of the Lantern, as she was called, went into dark hovels filled with fever and infection, bringing respect and love, comfort and support. It said that there wasn't a single cabin in the city she didn't visit. Later, she and her companions set up an infirmary for sick and dying women in Cork. Nano devoted all her money to running her schools and caring for the poor. When funds ran out, she simply went out and begged, in hail, rain and snow, despite her failing health. But, as she saw it, her own spirit of love and service wasn't enough. She had to provide for the future. Nano invited the Ursulines, sisters from France, to take over her schools. However, their vow of enclosure meant they couldn't take responsibility for all of them. What was Nano to do? Her response was courageous and far-seeing. She would found her own congregation. The little house in Cove Lane became her first convent, and 3 companions joined her. The foundation of the congregation on Christmas Eve 1775 was marked by inviting 50 beggars to Christmas dinner the following day. By 1783, Nano Nagle and her sisters were familiar figures on the streets of Cork. However, by the end of that year, Nano's health began to decline seriously. not helped by constant toil in ghastly conditions, and on her way to visit her schools, Nano collapsed on the street. The following day, the 65-year-old died peacefully, knowing that her life's work was in safe hands. "Love one another as you have hitherto done," she told her sisters. They did, and the work continued, with new convents in Killarney, George's Hill in Dublin, Waterford, North Presentation in Cork and Kilkenny. Each of these became parent houses to presentation foundations across the world. The congregation spread through the continents. Today, Presentation Sisters worldwide respond to people in need wherever they can, be it in Australia, England, India, Latin America, New Zealand, Pakistan, the Philippines, Slovakia, Thailand, the United States, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. In Ireland, education continues at preschool, primary, and post-primary levels, caring particularly for students with special needs. Sisters work and live close to traveller families and with refugee and migrant families. Some work as prison chaplains and in Northern Ireland build bridges through ecumenical prayer gatherings. A Presentation Sister blazed a trail in setting up the first social bank in Ireland, Clan-Credo, offering loans for social projects to those who could not find funding elsewhere. Some work in the Ministry of Healthcare. Even retired sisters visit lonely and isolated people. When the Presentation Sisters worldwide gather in special conference every 5 years or so, they ask themselves, how would Nano Nagle respond to the needs of the world today? What would Nano Nagle be doing in the very different Ireland and world of today? This is how the most recent gathering in June 2006 summed up our mission today. We strive to move more and more towards communion with and respect for all of creation. We work to create just systems and we challenge structures which perpetuate poverty. We live the mission of Jesus into the future alongside people made poor by unjust systems. We channel our resources so that we can speak and act in partnership with others for global justice.
You are the lamp, he is the light. You are the warmth, he is the fire. You are the step, he is the way. You are the ray, he is the sun. So with kindled heart make your light to shine. Share his love and bring his peace to all. With his strength face all your trials. He'll be there protecting you from harm. You are the lamp, he is the light. You are the warmth, he is the fire. You are the step, he is the way.